Hey, Dave and Jamie. What's up?
Hey, Adam. How are you?
Question: what do Michael Pittman, Raheem Mostert, and Nico Collins have in common?
They've all never been in my kitchen.
Jamie said they're good. Dave quoted cheers. And I will tell you that they were all drafted after pick 100 in our Fantasy Football Today draft, which is one of the later ones that we did last year. Dave has a look on his face like, what are you talking about? Last year, they all went after pick 100, which is, I mean, that's really something.
Pittman is the one that's disappointing.
That he went that late?
How?
Yeah, because like that's one we, I think, collectively missed.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, if I had known Gardner Minshew was going to be his quarterback,
right,
I would have taken him in the 70s, at least, maybe the 50s.
At minimum.
Yeah.
Where would you take him this year if Joe Flacco was his quarterback? And this sounds ridiculous because Anthony Richardson is such an awesome fantasy option. But we know that Richardson has some concerns as a thrower. And we saw Joe Flacco, like he was amazing when he played last year for Cleveland. If Flacco was his quarterback, let's ask this question. If Flacco had to start one game, how many fantasy points would you project for Pittman in that game?
16.45 PPR.
So like 8 for 85? Jamie,
yes.
I'd go over that, would you?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's going to score a touchdown in some of those games. Anyway, so we're talking about our favorite late round picks today. Yeah, right. Exactly. We're going to talk about our favorite late round picks today, and we're going to set the parameters as around or after pick 100. And one thing I wanted to start with is this. Looking at NFC ADP, high stakes leagues, 25 drafts over the last 28 days or so, there is not a single Chargers player being drafted in the top 100. At 102, we get Ladd McConkey. I know he won't last that long in our drafts, but he might last that long. I mean, Dave, I don't know if you know, you've been looking at some audience drafts, but McConkey, then Herbert, then Gus Edwards, then Quentin Johnston, then J.K. Dobbins, then Josh Palmer, then Kamani Vidal. But it's really possible that we go 100 picks before a Charger goes off the board. And I think you'd have to say they present some of the best value if that's the case. I want to know, Jamie, what do you think about drafting 2 of 3 Chargers wide receivers with late picks?
So the friendship strategy on steroids.
No.
I don't think it's a bad move. I mean, you know, we talked about the pros and cons of Justin Herbert in this offense in the passing game yesterday or on Wednesday's show, and I think I'm more of the opinion that Justin Herbert's talent will be a little bit different for what the offense has used because of how he will operate, as opposed to what Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman have done with running quarterbacks. Not that it's going to be the best of Justin Herbert, but still there'll be enough production, I think, for these guys that, yes, if you want to take, some dart throws on guys in this range, that you bank on talent and hopefully it comes through.
I think one of the keys here is that McConkey will be the first receiver taken. And just to point this out, Adam, we did a Ask FFT fan mock draft on Wednesday. McConkey went 76th overall. Full PPR. You're starting 2 wide receivers in a flex. So that's round 7. That's significantly earlier than 100th overall. If you were to do this friendship strategy, the nice thing about it is one of the 2 picks should come after like 130th overall, because no one's excited about Quentin Johnston. No one's that excited about Josh Palmer. You can wait a while to get one of those guys. It's just, at what point are you getting McConkey? If it's in this mock that we did yesterday, I don't think the 76th pick is necessarily worth it, but it's okay. I just don't love the idea of let's get 2 wide receivers on a team that's going to run the ball a lot. Kind of defeats the purpose of what we're going for here in the second half of our draft.
I knew I had a team that I drafted recently with 2 of the 3 Chargers wide receivers, and it was our super flex draft where I took McConkey in round 8, so maybe he's more like a round 7 pick. And then I took Palmer. No, I took Quentin Johnston in round 12. And, my thinking there was like, those are probably the two guys I want. I don't really think Palmer has a ton of upside. I think at best he's a number 3 wide receiver, a solid flex, maybe something like that. McConkey and Johnston could turn into something. And Johnston's so cheap, I got no problem cutting him. But he's almost insurance for McConkey. Definitely McConkey should be a top 100 pick. But if he's not, you take
that.
him.
Yes,
100.
If you're getting him in round 9, you're crushing it.
I don't want it to be Johnston and Palmer if I'm doing it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But maybe I have less expectations for their run game. In fact, I do. I just don't know that they have a good running back on their roster. They might.
I think they have guys that fit their system, which is why they took guys that they're familiar with.
But one of the guys who fits their system is old, coming off his worst season. One guy's coming off a torn Achilles, and I love Dobbins. How can you expect a lot from him?
Right.
And then Kamani Vidal obviously is a big
I think
question.
I think that's the one to go after. And I think there's a chance that he'll be the third one taken in drafts.
I think he'll be the second one taken by the time we get to real drafts.
By the time we get to real drafts, he might be the first one taken. There's a lot to change possibly in LA.
Barring an injury, I'd be surprised.
What if he has a good camp? What if he has a good preseason?
Yeah, I still think people are going to take Edwards.
No, it's possible. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
This is me dreaming.
We'll see. Okay, so that's a look at the Chargers. A lot of options that are there for you. Didn't even mention the tight end. Why can't I think of his name, Dave? I always talk about him.
Antonio Gates?
No.
Kellen Winslow Sr.
Donald Parham. All right. Hey, what do you guys want me to promote? What are you guys doing on the website these days?
Getting ready for the magazine.
Ooh, there's
one thing.
Yeah.
Fan mock drafts.
Got some fun drafts coming up next week for the magazine. They're going to be awesome.
Okay, I got something great to promote. We are back on CBS Sports Network. They said it went so well. We had 15 million viewers for our first hour show on CBS Sports Network. Now, we had a lot of fun. It was a good show. And we're coming back Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Another hour on CBS Sports Network. Check it out. Check your local listings. Now, I mean, I have it on, obviously I have it on Verizon Fios. You have it on Direct. You have it on your cable provider. CBS Sports Network. Give it a look. And a lot of our podcasts are on there right now. So you can watch that. And they're not necessarily the podcast. They are additional shows in some cases, like ours. So we've got that content for you next week. That's Tuesday at 2 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, 2 p.m. Eastern. It's just a few news items here. George Kittle said he played through a core muscle injury for most of the second half of the season, and he had off-season surgery. Kittle expects to be ready for training camp. Kittle was the number 7 tight end per game in PPR last season. That was after 5 straight seasons where he was top 3 per game. Taysom Hill has been used in the backfield during OTAs, according to John Hendricks of Sports Illustrated.
Awesome.
Where's my sad music?
Not in this position that you think, though.
Oh, where? Fullback? No. Oh, Jalen Waddle will sign a 3-year extension. This hot off the presses just came in. Adam Schefter reporting Jalen Waddle is going to sign a 3-year extension worth nearly $85 million.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's more than Nico.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys. Guess what we're going to do now?
Take a break.
That's right. I wasn't going to do it, but Dave wanted to. So we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about our favorite late round picks. Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Yeah, he might not go in the top 100. That's amazing. Who else are we looking at today? Brian Robinson, Keon Coleman, Jaden Daniels. We'll be right back. We'll start the list after this.
My primary function is to create a balance and avoid a war.
There's some new players in town, and they brought the plague.
Why are you back?
Because I missed you.
When I act, I do so with purpose.
You got my attention. You don't want that. What happened to Kingston?
So we're talking about our favorite late round picks here, looking at pick 100 or later, or right around that part of the draft. And Dave put Jaxon Smith-Njigba on his list. Jamie put Christian Watson on his list. They were the first names mentioned for both of these guys. So I'll ask you both, who would you rather have? You're sitting there, Jamie. JSN and Watson are there. You're taking Watson. How about you, Dave?
I believe I have Watson ranked higher than JSN.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully he's got, remember we said Jamie made a lot of innuendo when we were talking about it, but Watson hoping that he has figured out his hamstring issues. He's got an amazing amount of touchdowns, 12 touchdowns in 23 games, but that's after the first 6 games of his career, he barely played. Only one of those games did he have a significant snap share. So that's 12 touchdowns in his last 17 games. 9 of those 12 touchdowns, this surprised me on Watson, 9 of those 12 touchdowns have come from 16 yards out or closer. He hasn't been one of those guys that's just had a bunch of bombs that he's turned into touchdowns. He's been a reliable red zone guy in those games. So anyway, so was Christian Watson, you think maybe the headline or the prize of right now, the late round picks, Jamie?
It's hard to say because, I'm using Fantasy Pros ADP, which how accurate is that? We don't know in late May, but I would take him before then. And I think just based on what his upside is, you kind of laid it out. He's the best Packers receiver if he plays a full season. And I don't think it would be particularly close based on the touchdowns. So Jaden Reed was great last year. Reed kind of struggled a little bit when Watson was healthy. Dontayvion Wicks is somebody that's going to be, fun to draft. Romeo Dobbs is going to be fun to draft, depending on how you view those two guys as the latter two. But Watson could be an absolute monster. And so this is the type of player, you want to talk about the Chargers guys and their offense. The Packers offense should be a little bit more explosive, and love the setup for Watson. The later you can get him. So I took him in a magazine draft that I did that we play out about 2 weeks ago as my 5th receiver. And I just love getting him that late.
Do you remember what round you got him in?
I could tell you if you want to talk about him.
Well, I'm just wondering if you'd go as high as round 7 to get Christian Watson.
This is a league where we start up to 5 receivers, so probably in that range.
Yeah, that's the range that I'm looking at for him. You're going to get to a point in your draft where you're going to really target, the volatile players, high upside, plenty of downside. We talked about the friendship strategy earlier with the Chargers. I think the Packers offense is a great one to go and lock in that friendship strategy with. How I feel about them. I think that the Packers offense should be really good this year. I think Jordan Love maybe takes another step forward. I was a big fan of what he did in 2023. The question is, can Watson stay healthy? I think what they're doing with his legs is great. He just got to make it through all training camp in the preseason. If he can do that without injury, I'll be even more optimistic, and round 7 might be too late. But the idea is you draft Watson and then maybe pair him with Wicks, maybe Dobbs. We'll get an idea of which one of those two could end up having more playing time. But getting that combination of Packers receivers, I think it'll lock you into one guy who could be at worst a number 3 option for your team. And when you're drafting Watson in that round 7-8 range, you're drafting him to be a number 3 receiver. Jamie said it. He's got the upside to be a fantastic option in fantasy. We've seen that now over his first 2 seasons in spurts, limited action. Need to see it a little bit more consistently, but he's got that type of talent where he can do it.
It was round 8. He was wide receiver 41. He was taken right before in terms of wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Lockett. He also went ahead of Ladd McConkey. And then after Jordan Addison, Marquise Brown, these are the receivers that went in round 7.
Yep, we've got a range. That's cool.
Are we forgiving Watson for pretty lackluster play last year? His last 2 games of the season, Detroit and Kansas City, both of those games were national TV games. Last 2 games of the regular season, he came back and he limped through the playoffs. But weeks 12 and 13, 5 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown on Thanksgiving, I believe that was, at Detroit. And then 7 for 71 and 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. And no number 1 receivers ever did well against the Chiefs. It was amazing. The 6 games before that, and I won't even count week 4 because he barely played, but the 6 games before that, weeks 5 through 10, he averaged 5 through 11, 39 yards per game. He was really bad. And I almost feel like I am giving that a pass. I know.
I don't think he was healthy. Obviously, the scenario that we discussed earlier this week about him learning how to run differently because of the asymmetry between his legs um, is something that matters here. That they're trying to find a way to fix his hamstring problems. And so hopefully, if he's healthy, again, you're looking for upside here. And so there's going to be a lot of conversation. It's on a lesser scale because the Texans, who's the best Texans wide receiver conversation is more sexy. Who's the better receiver in Green Bay? Not as much. And you're going to get, I see in our chat, for example, a lot of people excited about Dontayvion Wicks, understandably so. Um, Jaden Reed is someone that will debate a lot. I'm sure how much of his success is predicated on people missing time last year, or is he really that good? I think Jair Alexander just came out and said how great he looks in OTAs, and understandably so. He was very good last year. But to me, Watson is the one that can really be the most explosive of the group, and he's the one that interests me the most because I think Reed's going to get a little overdrafted, and Watson will most likely be the second guy that comes off the board. And again, I think he could be the best. So, should we overlook some of his, flaws from last year or the previous season? I don't think you should overlook anybody's, bad games, but you have to sort of, take it for what it was. Where not healthy, Jordan Love didn't really get hot until the end of the season. How much of that was a factor too? And if he's right, I think he's going to be, pretty special.
Okay. And you all three of you two and Heath all have Reed ranked ahead of Watson, but it's closer than what the ADP would show. Dave, the case for JSN after a really crummy rookie season is what?
It's a change in offensive philosophy in Seattle. We're going to start there. The fact that Ryan Grubb is now the play caller. He's more of a spread-based play caller, loves to fire downfield, and he does have a tendency to target his slot wide receivers. In each of his last 3 years as a play caller, 2 at Washington, 1 at Fresno State, receivers who line up in the slot see over 30% of the targets season after season after season. This doesn't mean that JSN is going to be the only guy that sees targets in the slot for Seattle. They'll mix and match, but he's going to be the one who primarily does it. He mentioned Smith-Njigba as a guy who looked like McMillan, who was the main slot receiver for Washington last year and the year before. In the past 2 seasons, it's 24 games for McMillan. He caught 14 touchdowns. He had over 1,600 yards. I think we will see JSN get utilized more in one-on-one situations, option routes, that type of thing, where the middle of the field is utilized and they throw more just in general, and Smith-Njigba takes advantage of the situation.
I'm going to stick with wide receivers on your list, Dave. Khalil, Shakir, and Dontayvion Wicks. So this would be a few rounds, maybe 2 rounds later. What do you think? Then Watson and JSN?
Watson first, JSN. Let's put JSN in that round 8-9 range. So he'll be right around 100th overall. I don't mind taking JSN right before the 100th pick. Then I think you can wait a while to get Shakir. Shakir probably in that 110th, 115th pick range. And then Wicks, 10, 15 picks after that. I like Shakir's opportunity first and foremost. I went back and I watched his play late in the season in the playoffs. He seemed to be like the short area, quick target guy, and he's got quickness to his game. I think that he's someone who can be a top 2 target getter. Maybe top 3 is probably safer to say right now, but he could evolve into being a top 2 target getter in Buffalo just because I think he's got that trust built with Josh Allen. Remember the play late in their loss against Kansas City in the playoffs? It was at the end of the game. Allen misfires into the end zone. He was looking for Shakir on that play. Shakir got himself open. I think it was a post route. If he catches that ball, I almost wonder if the narrative changes completely, because that play puts Buffalo into the Super Bowl. Shakir was getting open not just on short stuff, but also intermediate stuff. You'll remember the big touchdown that he had against the Jets. He out-hustled Sauce Gardner on a play, broke it for an 81-yard score. So he's got some good to his game. It's just, can he evolve into being the top target in Buffalo? I don't know if I'm ready to say that, but I am ready to begin the season with Shakir on my bench in case he does become a quality contributor week after week for the Buffalo Bills, in case Keon Coleman is more in the Gabe Davis role, in case Curtis Samuel doesn't hog 6 targets per game. I think he's someone worth just taking a shot on in the late rounds, seeing what happens in the first few weeks. Wicks is basically the insurance policy for any Packers wide receiver that struggles. I think he could play in any role, whether it's Watson, Reed, or Dobbs going down. I think he'll play, and maybe even with a hot preseason, he can unseat one of those guys. It would probably be Dobbs as the one that he'd unseat, but he's got some talent too. He can make plays after the catch, average just over 5 yards after catch per reception. That was second best on the Packers in 2023. I think that Wicks is just another one of those guys. Late pick, take the shot after 3 weeks. If there's nothing there, you could move on from him if you wanted to.
Would you rather draft Gabe Davis or Wicks?
Whoever you're about to say. Yeah. Wicks.
I don't know, man. I mean, I have a hard time drafting Wicks because if he's just insurance.
I don't think he's insurance. I don't think that's at all.
You think he's starting and playing regularly?
No, I think they're going to have a pretty heavy rotation of their wide receivers, and
okay.
Mostly between Dobbs and Wicks. I think if anybody's getting unseated, if we're going, that they're going to run multiple, tight end sets or just, use 3 receivers and mix and match some guys, I think Wicks is going to end up getting more opportunities than Dobbs because he's better.
Yeah, he might be. Okay, how about Troy Franklin or Dontayvion Wicks?
Wicks.
I think I might have Franklin higher.
Okay, how about Troy Franklin or Khalil Shakir?
I have Shakir
Shakir
spots ahead.
By a lot, yeah.
How about Shakir or Jahan Dotson?
Shakir.
I've got Shakir over Dotson.
I think if things go well for Shakir, he's going to be drafted very close to JSN. Because you look at this receiving core right now, he's the only one that's caught a pass from Josh Allen on this team.
What do you think the chances of Khalil Shakir leading the team in receiving?
Just above it, like
I'll say
1,050.
Okay. All right. So far we have talked about Christian Watson, JSN, Khalil Shakir, and Dontayvion Wicks. Let's go to Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson was the number 10 tight end per game last year. A little bit better than that overall. He caught 5 touchdowns. He did catch 3 touchdowns, though, in the playoffs in one game against the Packers. I do. 10 catches, 93 yards, 3 touchdowns. Well, it also goes to this. He had 6 to 8 targets in 6 straight games to end the regular season, and then that 3 touchdown, 12 target performance in the playoffs. So that means Ferguson scored double-digit PPR fantasy points in 5 of his last 7 games, including the playoffs. So he did finish strong. And a tight end has been second on the team in targets 3 straight years for Dallas. So sorry, Dave, if I stole all your thunder, but it's an easy case to make.
It's probably more than that in Dak's tenure that a tight end has been second on the team in targets.
Yeah, well, probably 3 straight years, I say.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like you go back to when he was a rookie with Witten, through Schultz, to Ferguson. It's just they have like the same guy.
Yeah,
it's like 100 to 110 targets. It's 70 to 80 catches and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and to your point, 4 years ago was when Dak played 5 games. So, all right, Dave. Sorry. Anything else you want to add about Ferguson?
He's the guy that is the best fallback option if you whiff on the first 9 tight ends on draft day. It's really as simple as that. I don't think you prioritize him. I'm not calling him a huge breakout. I don't think he's going to be better than George Kittle or Kyle Pitts or any of that nonsense, but I think he can get you 10 PPR points per game. I believe he did that in 11 games last year with at least 6 targets.
Okay. And
that was his average. He averaged over 10.
Blake Corum and Kamani Vidal. Vidal, we've already sort of discussed. Are they even close to you, or is Corum clearly ahead?
Corum's clearly ahead. And just I'm starting to kind of fall in love with Corum and what he could potentially be in this offense. It doesn't hurt that Kyren Williams has another injury. He's now had 4 foot or ankle injuries in 3 NFL seasons, 2 of the 4 coming before the season. And I expect him to be fine for training camp, but I think we're starting to get an idea of why the Rams wanted to get some quality depth at running back behind Kyren Williams. And it makes me wonder if they're going to try and lighten his load considerably, which isn't something that's in character with Sean McVay, but it might be something that we end up seeing. Michigan, consecutive years of over 1,200 rush yards, at least 18 rushing touchdowns. Had something crazy like a touchdown in every single game. I think it was last year, except for one game that he missed. Good in short yardage, not great in short yardage, but he can work out a pistol. He can work out a shotgun. Underrated as a pass catcher, could contribute there, maybe not as much as Kyren Williams. But I wonder if he's going to be the one that gets grinder carries for the Rams. So 4-minute offense, they're killing the clock. I think it's Corum. That can include short yardage goal line carries. Let the rookie handle it. It makes me a little bit more nervous to get Kyren Williams. He's not a first-round pick at all. I think he's a second-round pick. And if I get Kyren Williams, I'm targeting Corum just to lock up that backfield because I think it's a valuable one. I think this offense is actually going to be very good if everything stays healthy. They upgraded the offensive line. Matthew Stafford's good. Cooper Kupp's good. I think this is an offense that's going to put up a lot of points, so I want pieces of it. Corum is going to be one of those guys.
I have a feeling Corum's going to get a little overdrafted now with the Kyren injury.
Let's see where it went yesterday.
I think it'll be forgotten about if Kyron's healthy during training camp.
It's still going to be because it's going to be on our player page when we start doing drafts in August. He's not
that injury tag, right?
Yeah, he's not going to get cleared until there's something that he's back practicing.
Okay.
And the Rams are going to be very cautious with it.
Well, what if he's practicing on the first day of training camp and this is just
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think that's going to necessarily change how people are going to view Blake Corum because he's going to get positive, pub from us and most fantasy analysts. And I think everybody kind of realizes that's played this game before that guys like Kyren Williams that come out of nowhere, they tend to flop. And why did the Rams go out and get somebody else? Now, I'm not saying Kyron's going to, but there are plenty of examples of this happening. And so does Corum come in and all of a sudden take over a lot of the work, as Dave alluded to? Does he take over part of it? What role does he have by comparison to Kyren? I just think he's going to get. I'm not saying it's wrong to draft him early. I'm just thinking he's going to get overdrafted. I don't think he's going to be after pick 100 by any stretch.
Is he worth taking at around 100th overall right now?
Absolutely.
All right, so that's not overdrafting, and
no. Where he's going right now
is
perfectly fine.
I think both have him ranked.
I think he's going to be in that group of Chase Brown and Tyjae Spears and Jalen Warren and the high-end backups, which is probably where he belongs.
That's what I agree. I think that's where he belongs. I think he goes toward the back of that group. I think he's going to go like right around pick 100. That's where you and I have him ranked right now. Heath's a little bit lower. In the fan mock draft on Wednesday, he went 121st overall. So I listen, I hope anybody that I like doesn't get overdrafted. There's a case that we can make for a lot of the players that we're talking about today getting overdrafted because of the hype that could come along with a strong preseason for Christian Watson, for Khalil Shakir, for Blake Corum. But for now, I would try and take advantage of Corum and that value that you're getting him at if it's around or after 100th.
It's funny, though, to put him in the same conversation as Tyjae Spears, who is on Jamie's list and is going right around 100th overall. Yeah, and I mean, I just think that's insane. That's incredible value. But I think Jamie personally,
on my list. It's Fantasy Pros ADP. It's not on my list.
No, that's what I said. He is going. You were right to put him there.
Yeah.
I just think it's maybe Tyjae Spears right now has among the best ADP, right? Total steal. In my opinion. But Warren and Spears, to me, feel a little bit different than Corum and Chase Brown.
I totally agree.
Okay. I thought you were sort of lumping all four of them.
Well, how I feel about them and how they'll be drafted are two different things. So putting Corum and Brown at the back end of that group is where they belong. Should they be drafted ahead of them? No. And again, that's not necessarily saying that they should go in the same round or range, but not range is a bad word. Same round, but they should have a little bit of a separation in terms of where their draft capital is.
And I'm not really sure why Zach Charbonnet doesn't go ahead of Blake Corum. I would take him ahead of Blake Corum. I don't know. Like Ken Walker has a lot of injury history. Charbonnet is the third down back. Was the third down back last year. You know what I mean? It's like,
Dave's made some great points over the last, few shows about the Seahawks throwing the ball more. And if that's going to be the case, then Charbonnet's value is probably getting undersold because of what he can be. So yeah, there's a lot to like about him. I feel like he's kind of getting lost a little bit, in terms of these type of guys. because he does have the potential to be a lottery ticket. We saw it last year when Walker missed time. He was very good. And B, is he going to be more involved in a more up-tempo, pass-happy offense? Then that's probably the case.
Yeah, I think it might be one of those cases where if he were a rookie, he might be going even higher because he didn't really have that big of an impact as a rookie. But it's just, and when he did get that chance, Jamie, those 3 games, he faced pretty tough competition. I remember we were talking about, oh man, Charbonnet finally gets his chance, and he faces the 49ers, the Cowboys, and one other good run defense, Rams, I think. He averaged like 3.2 yards per carry in those 3 games, but he was basically an every down back. So, yeah, I just wonder if people overrate rookies sometimes, forget about even a guy like Charbonnet. He's only in his second year. He was a second-round draft pick. Okay, anyway, let's take a break and come back, talk about 2 quarterbacks on Dave's list. Then we'll turn it over to Jamie's list, and we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
The biggest stage in European football is set. Get ready for the UEFA Champions League final with We Need to Talk on CBS and streaming live on Paramount+.
Dave, I'm going to skip Jaden Daniels just because I totally get it. And we've talked a lot about him. But Matthew Stafford is someone we haven't talked about. You mentioned how good you think the Rams offense is going to be. Weeks 12 through 17, the last 6 games that Stafford played because he sat week 18, they were, I think, the second highest scoring team in the NFL. Yeah, they averaged almost 31 points per game. He was absolutely incredible. He was on pace for 4,831 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Just tremendous. And then he backed it up with 367 yards and 2 touchdowns in a playoff game at Detroit. So obviously terrific in 2021, terrible in 22, and then kind of cut 2023 in half between terrible and great. What do you expect from Stafford?
I'm hoping for the great. It's going to mean that everybody stays healthy, which, I mean, we'll see. Stafford included in that list. He's an older guy. He's 36 years old. But we look at offenses that have one great receiver, and we anoint those quarterbacks. Here's an offense with 2 great receivers, Nakua, Kupp. They're still very, very good. Nakua has a chance to improve this year, which is a scary thought. They added Colby Parkinson. He's going to be a contributor, just not necessarily someone that'll make a difference in fantasy. I look at, and the offensive line, I mentioned it with Corm. Yes, it's better across the board, and that'll help Stafford. You have in his last 6 games. I've got in his last 7 games. This is after his injury. This is when the Rams offense was healthy. He averaged 23.4 fantasy points per game. That's right in line with what he did in 2021. So if they can put it all together, that's going to be his average over the course of the season. That's a top 12 fantasy quarterback that you can draft in the double-digit rounds. Easily one of the guys to target if you take a quarterback that you just want to have a backup for, whether it's a rookie, whether it's someone like Anthony Richardson, who's got gobs of upside, but he's only played in 4 NFL games. This is someone that you go after with a late pick, or in a 2 QB league, someone you go after hoping that he's right around maybe the 16th, 17th quarterback off the board.
Yeah. Problem is, Dave, I feel like he has to be one of the best passers in football to be a top 12 quarterback because he has 1 rushing touchdown in his last 7 seasons.
Well, yeah. I mean, that goes without saying, and that's why he's averaged around, when things have been right, 23 fantasy points per game. Whereas the quarterbacks that run, they usually blow that number out of the water.
All right, so let's go to Jamie's list here with Christian Watson on there. We talked about him. Tyjae Spears. So if we think Tyjae Spears is one of the best values, if he's really going about 100th overall, where do you think he should go, Jamie?
About 20 picks sooner at the earliest.
Okay. And where do you think Pollard should go?
A little bit before then. I mean, you're looking at least right now, the potential of them splitting work. And if that's going to be the case, you should definitely take the guy that's going later. Spears was very explosive last season. We saw that, whenever they were trailing, they gave him a lot of opportunities by comparison to Derrick Henry. He's got the ability to work in the passing game. I think this offense is going to be better across the board. Hopefully a better Will Levis, but they invested in their offensive line. They invested in the receiving core. And so while Pollard should be the lead guy, and, again, based on what he said and how the ratings were, if you buy into, PFF's ratings and rankings, Pollard was the number 1 running back for them from the Carolina game on for the Cowboys. And as he talked about, that was when he finally felt healthy coming back from the leg injury he suffered the year before. So if Pollard can be that guy, then he's should be the best running back for the Titans, but there's no guarantee that's going to be the case. And so I try to target Spears as often as I possibly can with the idea of A, he could be good while both guys are healthy. B, he could be a star if Pollard were to miss any time.
Think about what the Titans offense wants to be. They don't want to be like what they've been under Mike Vrabel and with Derrick Henry there. They want to put the ball in the air. And kind of what Jamie mentioned with Charbonnet in Seattle, and that's a really good point. If they want to be a passing team, look, I know that Tony Pollard can do anything, and he did it in college, and he's done it in the NFL. Tyjae Spears proved year one that he can be a good passing downs back. And if this is going to be a passing offense, then he should get a lot of targets there. And if it's going to be interchangeable between Pollard and Spears, and there isn't one guy that's got one specific role, and it's going to be ambiguous, then I might actually lean towards Spears as being the better running back between the two. I worry about Jamie was worried about Corum being overdrafted. At what point would it be where Spears gets overdrafted? If you see Spears going in round 5, that feels like it could be a little too pricey. But
well, I mean, we've seen
round 7, which is I think where Jamie's got him ranked right now. You're the high man on him, Jamie. I don't think that's crazy for Spears.
We've seen at least one draft that I'm aware of that we've done where Spears went ahead of Pollard.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, like I've said, the Titans have on several occasions said they're interchangeable. They're 1A, they're 1B. You know,
I mean, Brian Callahan told me that at the owners' meetings.
Right.
They have not established a depth chart, so that's certainly one we're going to be keeping an eye on. Brian Robinson definitely could have been in that episode of players we don't talk about enough. He was the number 21 running back per game, Brian Robinson, in all formats last year. And go ahead. After pick 100, Brian Robinson, Jamie.
They're going to be a better running team, based on everything that they've said. The addition of Anthony Lynn, Cliff Kingsbury being there. I mean, the offense just as a whole should be better. The question really will be and this is what I think helped Robinson a lot is, we were trying to talk about regression candidates as a potential show topic. And, I said, I think Robinson's touchdowns increased from the 5 that he scored last year. He's not going to be as successful as a pass catcher last year, which I think was a little underrated because when Antonio Gibson missed time last year, he was very involved in the passing game. Now, if he can do that, maybe it's an Eckler injury or just, the fact that he's getting older, he's going to be potential monster. The question is, will Jaden Daniels throw to his running backs as much? How much of that will be a byproduct of the offense? Or how much of that will just be maybe he alters his game a little bit because we know when running quarterbacks that things break down. They're not looking to dump the ball off. They're looking to use their legs. So Robinson, I think, will be a better runner. I don't know, again, if he'll reach some of the heights that he did last year just overall, but I think he'll score more touchdowns. I think he's got a chance to, have a career year in rushing yards. And if he could stay healthy, I think he's going to be one of the better surprises for fantasy managers last year. So he's an easy guy to target if he's going in this range. I would take him a little bit before this. And I think there's just a lot to like about the situation because Washington's offense as a whole should just be a better producing and scoring offense, which will help him. I think he can get to 7 or 8 touchdowns.
Dave, do you agree that Brian Robinson is a very good pick in the late rounds?
I think he's one of the running backs you settle for or target if you go 0 RB. I think he's worth taking before 100th overall. I agree with Jamie there. I would take him ahead of Eckler, even in full PPR, because I don't think Eckler gets a ton of targets, and I'm not sure just how much playing time he'll get. He might be the passing downs back on a team with a running quarterback. That probably does not mean a lot of targets on a consistent basis for Austin Eckler. And I wrestle with Robinson versus Devin Singletary. I feel like they're both undesirable fantasy running backs. But to me, and maybe this sounds silly, I think Robinson has a better chance of keeping his job over the course of the season than Singletary does.
That's interesting. Because, they could just give Austin Eckler.
I know. Maybe it's a foolish statement. Maybe it'll look terrible by August. Who knows? But for now, I'm drafting Robinson over Singletary.
I'm just trying to say, like, Antonio Gibson had 65 carries in 17 games. Chris Rodriguez had 51. Brian Robinson only had 178. He didn't really get that many carries. Obviously, he's going to need, that's in 15 games. So let's say like 200 in 17 games. That's really not enough. Especially when you're not catching the ball a ton. But yeah, I don't want to give the sense that it's just going to be foregone conclusion that he's the lead running back. Is Do you guys take the possibility seriously that Austin Eckler leads the team in carries?
Yes. I mean, I don't anticipate it happening, but look, there's a familiarity with the running backs coach. I think he also has gotten the title of assistant head coach, Anthony Lynn. Um, that's going to matter. I think depending on how Dan Quinn leans on veteran guys, not that Robinson's not, established himself in the league already, but Eckler's been very good at scoring touchdowns. That's an underrated part of his game. When you think of him as a pass catcher, he's been very good at finding the end zone consistently for his team. Now, last year he looked awful. And, when guys get to this age at that position, they start to fall off. And maybe that's just the case with him, which is why the Chargers, more so than money, have moved on from him. But if he can squeeze out, a stretch of games or close to a full season, then it may be difficult for Brian Robinson to overtake him in every facet of the game. But I still think Eckler's going to have a role. And if the Commanders are right and smart about it, they minimize Eckler's touches, use him more as a pass catcher, get the best out of him that they can, and then you let Robinson be their lead carrier and hopefully get the type of rushing production that he's capable of getting.
Let's go to 3 more running backs here. Trey Benson, Chase Brown, and Rico Dowdle. Benson for the Cardinals, Brown for the Bengals, and Dowdle for the Cowboys. Do you have a clear favorite there? Trey Benson, Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle?
Brown for me.
Dave?
I have Benson highest.
All right, go for it, guys. Jamie, why is Chase Brown the highest of that trio of Trey Benson, Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle?
I'm just a little concerned that what Zach Moss has done in his career carries over once again, which is struggling to stay healthy and not staying as the lead guy for a full season. And so if that's the case, you can see a situation where the Bengals, do they give Chase Brown the opportunity to be the lead guy? Do they go with Travion Williams? Do they give Chris Evans a chance to carry the ball? Brown had some pretty explosive plays last year, and I know you like that, Adam. I think it was 5 plays over 27 yards in catching the ball and running the ball, and that was in minimal touches. So the explosiveness is there for him. Can he be a lead runner? And that's the question. But Moss was great in spurts in Buffalo. He was fantastic at the start of the season last year for the Colts. He fits the system, as we talked about. His ability to run on shotgun, which is something the Bengals do a lot. But I just find myself taking a lot of Chase Brown with the potential of, if something happens to Zach Moss, I want pieces of this offense, and I think that's where he's going to fit. Benson's behind a guy that's had a hard time staying healthy and can certainly get a chance to be the lead guy there. They're not far apart from me by any stretch. And Rico Dowdle is playing behind Ezekiel Elliott at this point, so on a team is going to run the ball. These are 3 of my favorite targets, so if you play the game the way I do, which is mostly a hero RB strategy, you take shots on guys like this because you want to have the chance of one, if not all of them, being the starter at some point during the season.
Is Rico a placeholder? Meaning that if Dallas adds another running back, you're done with Rico and moving on to whoever Dallas adds?
Yeah, sure. It's a fair way to put it. I think if they acquire somebody, then it's bad news for everybody in the backfield.
Yeah.
Clearly, but it would depend on who that is. If they get a Samaje Perine type of guy, then
yeah,
I don't necessarily think that Rico Dowdle's completely out of the out of the way, completely done as being the potential guy there for the Cowboys. If they get a Khalil Herbert who's got some more upside, then that's problem.
On Chase Brown, he didn't really start seeing meaningful playing time until week 13. Even then, it was scarce. He was just as explosive as Mixon from week 13 on, higher frequency of negative runs compared to Mixon. But he had a higher avoided tackle rate, higher yards after contact per run rate. His receiving metrics were higher. Jamie, you mentioned those explosive plays. One of them, all of his pass catching metrics are propped up by a 54-yard screen that he had against Indianapolis, where the Colts were A, way out of position, and B, not great against the run anyway. So I don't know if I want to put too much stock in the small sample size of Chase Brown. Really, with him, it's more about can Zach Moss really be the guy? And if he can, then it's going to be bad for Chase Brown. If he can't, then Chase Brown has a huge opportunity. I kind of like drafting both of those running backs together if I'm going hero RB strategy or zero RB strategy. I don't know if I love Zach Moss going ahead of Chase Brown, but I will do it first and then try and get Brown a round or 2 after, because that backfield's been really good. It was really good to Joe Mixon. it's been a great spot for production and fantasy. That's one where I would like to have a piece. If I can end my draft with the Rams and Bengals backfields on my team, plus a couple of other ancillary running backs, I'll be pretty happy.
Here's a comment from Isaac in our chat. Why do fantasy football commentators not weigh in on offensive lines when talking about running backs? LOL. Eckler is old, but weren't the Chargers O-line a bottom 5 in the league? Well, actually, PFF, Isaac, rated them as the worst run blocking team in the league, the Chargers, whereas Washington was 9th best last year. So I do like your point there. Chargers offensive line was horrible. The 3 teams that had run blocking grades that were so much worse than every other team were the Chargers, Jaguars, and Giants. So Eckler's getting a huge upgrade. Barkley's getting about as big of an upgrade as you can find. And hopefully ETN gets an upgrade just by what they haven't done that much, but they brought in Mitch Morse and their left tackle, Cam Robinson. He missed like 7 games or something due to suspension and or injury. Ezra Cleveland, they brought in midseason. They re-signed him. The Jaguars certainly made efforts to upgrade their line. So good point. Thank you, Isaac. We should talk more about offensive lines. I do think that it's not as easy because I don't love relying, no offense to PFF, I just don't love relying on PFF grades. It's not a stat. It's sort of an opinion. But I do take it pretty seriously when these 3 teams have run blocking grades in the low, in 41.1 or lower. Every other team in football was at least 52.1. I mean, Chargers, Jaguars, Giants, absolutely horrendous PFF run blocking grades.
And if you watch the running backs play,
you take the grades as a jumping off point, and then you look at, there was injuries last year. Obviously Herbert missed time, so all those things factor into it.
All right, let's see who else we have here for Jamie. We got Ladd McConkey. We talked about him. Keon Coleman, Josh Downs, Rashid Shaheed. These are 3 other receivers on Jamie's favorite late round value list. Keon Coleman for the Bills, Josh Downs going into his 2nd season for the Colts, and Rashid Shaheed from the Saints. I actually got a listener or viewer on Twitter, on Twix. Paul said Rashid Shaheed is one of his favorites. Imagine him in the Deebo Samuel role in Clint Kubiak's offenses. Kubiak comes from the 49ers system, but I don't really see Shaheed anything like Deebo Samuel personally. But
probably Taysom Hill in that role, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe. But Keon Coleman, Josh Downs, and Rashid Shaheed.
I mean, I like Khalil Shakir the best of the Bills guys. I was just trying to find some different players from Dave's list. So Coleman, Dave said this before. There's an uncertainty of who's going to be the best receiver for Buffalo, and Coleman's the guy that they drafted. Has immense upside. So easy guy to take with a late round pick, just with the chance of what he can become. Josh Downs was really good in the beginning part of the season last year. He certainly tailed off in the second half of the season. And the addition of Adonai Mitchell is probably not the best thing for him because I think he's an upgrade over Alec Pierce. But Richardson did seem to favor Downs a little bit. And I think just getting pieces of Shane Steichen's offense, especially at cheap cost, is something I want to do because I think Steichen's a very good play caller. And I think Richardson will surprise us as a passer. And then for Shaheed, yes, the Kubiak offense is going to allow these guys to make more plays in space. And you look at this receiving core right now, it's Chris Olave and then a lot of question marks. And so Shaheed's got an opportunity. He was really starting to pick up some steam last year before he got hurt. When he came back, he wasn't exactly the same. He wasn't producing at the same type of level. And asking Derek Carr to support multiple targets isn't probably the thing you want to do. But again, we've said this about a few players now at this point. I know you said it about Quentin Johnson, Adam. They're so easy to just draft and see what they can become in the first few weeks of the season. Then you cut them if they're not producing. So I do think Shaheed has a chance to be the second best receiver, not receiving option, because that hopefully will be Kamara, but be a factor in this game is a pretty good situation so far.
On Keon Coleman. He's like a big power forward out there. And we've talked about receivers like this. And a lot of guys, the Kelvin Benjamin, Chase Claypool model. No, they haven't worked out in the NFL. But I think Coleman's going to get a good opportunity to be that rangy perimeter receiver. Josh Allen liked him in the draft process. He told his GM that he was a fan of Keon Coleman's game. I think that means something. If he's in the Gabe Davis role, you might hear that and think, oh, that's not such a good thing. I dug into that a little bit. Davis never had more than 6.2 targets per game in either of his last 2 seasons with Buffalo. but he rarely, if ever, played without Stephon Diggs on the field. So now Keon Coleman, if he's in that role, maybe 6 targets is the floor for him from game to game. And so this, I would take him over Shakir as much as I like Shakir, and I think that he's an awesome sleeper. But he's in that same vein of, like Jamie mentioned, someone that you draft. If it doesn't work out early on, you could move on from him if you want to. And if he ends up being good and he ends up getting 7 targets per game, doing more than what Gabe Davis did, especially if there's some consistency behind it, then yeah, you're going to love getting what you get out of Keon Coleman.
Coleman, though, is the one I probably would disagree with about cutting, because I'd want to see this over more than a few game sample size. Shaheed, you kind of know what he's been in his career. It's more, does he take advantage of the opportunity? Downs is going to be in not necessarily a hugely crowded receiving core, but still in an offense that the quarterback's going to run. So these are 2 guys that you can move on from more so than I think the rookie who could emerge second half of the season as the best receiver on his team.
Do you have Coleman ranked past 100th? Is he a top 100 player for you? I guess is the question.
He's not a top 100 player for you, Keon Coleman?
No. He is. I've got him at 98.
He is for Jamie. He is for Dave. He's not for Jamie. Okay.
He's close, but no.
Yeah. By the way, just to go back to the Shaheed point, you guys know the systems and the coaching trees better than I do. But I did want to bring this up about Kubiak because we love coordinators that come from San Francisco. He spent 1 year in San Francisco. Mike McDaniel.
He also has 1 year in Minnesota where he helped Justin Jefferson as a rookie, so he knows receivers.
He's also the son of Gary Kubiak, who was the right-hand man of Mike Shanahan for years in the NFL.
Okay, he spent 1 year in San Francisco. Mike McDaniel was there for 5 years. Bobby Slowick was there for 6 years. So, but you think the Kubiak Shanahan connection, do you think he's going to be able to work that San Francisco magic? Because again, I mean, he's been in some spots. He's only been in San Francisco for 1 season.
I mean, again, does he have to have the same success to, qualify for being a 49ers coaching tree or Shanahan disciple? I don't know how many years it takes to be there. But like Dave said, he's been around the game his whole life.
Yeah, it's just we do talk about him a lot, I think, expecting a San Francisco boost for the Saints. And I don't know if he's going to run the same type of offense. One of my favorite stats is that the top 3 quarterbacks in yards per attempt last year were Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, and CJ Stroud. And they're all from that system. So I do think it's worth mentioning. I just also think it's worth mentioning that those 3 coaches absolutely entrenched in that San Francisco system. And that has not been the resume for Clint Kubiak.
No, but I think there will be hallmarks of that offense. Maybe without like the Debo
Kyle
Samuel
Shanahan worked for Clint Kubiak's dad also.
Yeah, there will be hallmarks for sure. Guys getting schemed open over the middle.
It's going to be very similar.
Catch.
Okay. Pat Freiermuth, Jamie, is on your list. Again, we don't talk a lot about him. And you like him as a... Okay, so who are you taking? Who goes like right before Freiermuth for you?
Right before Freiermuth?
Yeah, obviously you're going to have Ferguson. What about like Dalton Schultz?
I would take Freiermuth over Schultz at this point.
Okay.
I mean, we talk a lot about first or second on his team targets. He could easily be second. Roman Wilson's got a big opportunity. I know it's not fun to say Van Jefferson, but he's a proven guy that, may get some opportunities here. Right now you're seeing the reports came out the last couple of days. Russell Wilson and Pat Freiermuth spent a lot of time together so far this offseason. There seems to be a push to get him more involved in the offense. We know what he was as a rookie. I think it was 7 touchdowns as a rookie. Fell off in his second season. Produced more outside of the end zone in his second year, and then injuries have certainly played a part. But for what Arthur Smith and the negatives are, and clearly it was a negative impact on Kyle Pitts. But when there was a veteran quarterback there, the tight end was a significant piece of the offense in Pitts' rookie season when he had over 60 catches and 1,000 yards, didn't find the end zone. But I think you just look at what this offense can be, and it could be really either quarterback because Wilson, I think, will lean on Freiermuth. He hasn't exactly been a tight end guy, but I do think that there is a need for somebody to step up in this offense, and that's where Freiermuth will play a part. Justin Fields, we know, was doing very good things with Cole Kmet last year if he gets an opportunity to play. So I think the tight end will be a part of what his game is. But I think it's really more an Arthur Smith thing. Whether it was the combination of Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, I don't know exactly how it shook out, but I would imagine it was top 15 tight end, the combination of those two guys, if not higher. He will lean on that position. He's a former tight ends coach. That's what he was in Tennessee before he became the head coach there. I'm sorry, before he became the offense coordinator there. So I think Freiermuth is just a good late round flyer. If you want to pair somebody with TJ Hawkinson, for example, this is an easy way to go.
Well, you mentioned Cole Kmet. Has there been a player whose value has dropped more than Cole Kmet? And Justin Fields, I guess, for that matter, too. Poor Cole Kmet, because he did do some really good things with really full season, even had a couple of good games with with Tyson Bagent. But yeah, so had some nice games. Okay, let's see what the people on Twix are saying. Combination of Twitter and X. It's a Dave Richard joke, but I love it. Twix, favorite late round picks. Julio Pena says Marvin Mims and Justin Tucker. LOL.
Mims is a good one.
We'll see on Mims.
I don't know. I haven't really been too inclined to draft any Broncos receiver. I know we can make a case for three of them. Maybe if you want to throw Tim Patrick in there, I don't know. But I just think they're going to have a horrible team and pass offense.
I just want to see Patrick stay healthy for him. I mean, just an awful situation the last 2 years. Yeah, it's not the best offense you want to attach yourself to, but somebody's going to make plays. You know, it's not like there's not going to be someone that can get 800 yards receiving and 5 or 6 touchdowns. And, you know, it should be Cortland Sutton. You know, he benefited greatly from what Russell Wilson did with him last year. Franklin's an easy guy to take late because of the connection with Bo Nix. They played together at Oregon. And then Mims is, you know, a little bit of a wild card here because he should have been on the field more. I just don't understand what Sean Payton was doing with him last season, because while he may not have known everything that he was supposed to do, 3-4 plays a game, he couldn't touch the ball a little bit more and use some of his speed and explosiveness. And so hopefully that's going to be the case this year. But you have to see it first. But, you know, with the guys that we're talking about and you know, one of your last picks, it's easy to take a shot on him. And especially people playing best ball now, like this is the type of guy that if he gets 5 or 6 targets consistently a game, he's going to win you a couple weeks.
He's a best ball late round guy. I feel like Franklin can do a lot of what Marvin Mims can do and more. If I'm targeting a Broncos receiver late, it's going to be Franklin.
Oh, to be fair, this show, late round picks, 100th or later, Cortland Sutton actually does fall in that category. So I can't say that's bad value for Cortland Sutton.
I think there's no chance he might have half as many touchdowns as he had last year. And he had a ton. The only reason why he finished as he did in 2023 is because of the touchdowns. I don't think he even had 800 yards receiving.
No, he didn't. But Cortland Sutton had the last 2 games of his season were horrible. And I think he left both of them with injuries. So that skews his stats a little bit. He was something like right around 24th per game if you remove those last 2 games. But that was with 10 touchdowns. I'm just saying, Dave, wouldn't you have to, if you were going to pick one at the same cost, you'd have to take Sutton first.
Yeah, because I think he'll lead him in targets.
And he is going after the top 100, so I can't sit here and say he's bad value. Justin Tucker, by the way, has been a top 4 kicker in 3 straight seasons, 5 of the last 6 seasons. So I don't hate the call if you want to go a round earlier than your league and take a surefire good kicker, great kicker, arguably best ever. Dookie B says after pick 200, he'd take Denver running back Blake Watson.
He's been getting some hype in OTAs. Pass catching back, could be a 3rd down back. If he keeps it up, he's going to make the team. It's just a matter of how much playing time is he going to get. Is he really on a path to take over the Samaje Perine role? I kind of wonder if Javonte Williams could end up taking over the Samaje Perine role and somebody else gets the Javonte Williams role. Ooh. And I don't think that somebody else would be Watson.
Fish likes to draft Tyler Algier late.
I mean, why not?
Why not?
One injury away from
lottery ticket.
Fantastic.
Probably the difference between Algier and some of the other guys we've talked about, like a Chase Brown, is I would think very, very little value, probably no value without a Bijan injury.
In the current offense, yes. I mean, I don't think they're going to do what Arthur Smith did, which is force Tyler Algier carries down our throat.
Hope not. All right. And Paul did say Rashid Shaheed. He also said Jerome Ford.
Yeah, I would think Ford's value is going to vary widely depending on the Nick Chubb reports. So he could go after pick 100 if Chubb is ready to go in training camp. He could go in the first 75 picks if Chubb is unpublished.
All right. Who's ready for the Panthers game tonight? Let's go. Yeah.
Are you going?
No, I'm not going. I don't make $1 million. I can't go to a New York sporting event. Ridiculous.
It's your team.
It's not my team. It's more Schaefer's team. I think he's a bigger Panthers fan than I am.
If this was the Knicks in the conference finals, would you go? Same price.
No, I don't think I would, because I think to get any decent seat, you're talking probably $650 or more dollars. And no, I think that would be a very selfish purchase on my part. So no, I wouldn't do that. I thought about it because I'm turning 40 soon, and I was going to treat myself to a Knicks game when they were in the playoffs, but I gotta buy a play set outside for the kids. I just bought a basketball hoop. I can't be spending on a freaking basketball.
Don't buy
game.
play sets; they're waste.
I've heard that, but I've also
a park near your house.
I have a park, yeah,
So
but
go
I
to
don't
the park.
I don't want to go to the park. I don't want.
I'm too good for the park.
No, I want to stay home. That's
I'm
the whole.
going to build my own park in the backyard.
Oh. Well, anyway, listen, I got to go play Perfect Princess with my daughter, so I have to end this show. Oh, we'll
use your daughter as an excuse.
We'll talk to y'all on Monday. Have an awesome weekend, and just hit the end the button, Adam. Just end the damn show. Goodbye.